Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we need to talk about a story that has sent shockwaves through the region and beyond. A Yemeni missile strike reportedly hit Tel Aviv, a moment that immediately captured international attention and sparked widespread concern. This is not just a headline. This is an event that carries enormous weight in terms of politics, security, and the future of the Middle East. The attack itself was shocking because of where it landed and what it represented. Tel Aviv is not just a city in Israel. It's a symbol of modern Israel, a hub of culture, finance, and daily life. For a missile to reach and strike the city is more than a physical act. It's a message, one that is loud, clear, and dangerous. Yemen, thousands of kilometers away, is a country already dealing with its own civil war and humanitarian crisis. For many people watching this story unfold, the first question was simple. How could Yemen, a nation ravaged by years of conflict, launch a missile with such reach and accuracy? And why would they choose Tel Aviv as a target? The Yemeni group that claimed responsibility is part of the Houthis movement. They have been fighting against the internationally recognized Yemeni government for years, but they also see themselves as part of a larger regional struggle. Their ties to Iran are well documented, and their hostility toward Israel has grown more vocal in recent years, especially as the war in Gaza and Israeli actions across the region have drawn criticism and anger. When we look closer, this strike isn't only about Yemen versus Israel. It's about the growing web of conflicts in the Middle East. The Houthis have previously launched drones and missiles towards Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, but striking Tel Aviv takes things to an entirely new level. It suggests they now see themselves as active participants in a wider anti-Israel axis. For Israel, this is deeply concerning. The country is already facing pressure from the north with Hezbollah in Lebanon, from the east with militias in Syria, and from Gaza with Hamas. Now, if missiles are coming from Yemen, that means the threat is expanding in distance and complexity. Suddenly, Israel has to consider its defense posture in a much broader way. The Iron Dome and other missile defense systems have become famous for their effectiveness. But the fact that a missile managed to reach Tel Aviv and cause damage means the challenge is increasing. It raises doubts among ordinary citizens about whether they are truly safe, and it forces military planners to rethink the limits of their defensive shield. For the people of Tel Aviv, the strike was terrifying. Residents reported hearing the explosion, feeling the shockwaves, and scrambling for safety. The city is used to sirens and occasional threats, but having something fired from Yemen land in their backyard is something else entirely. It stretches the imagination of what the conflict means for daily life. Globally, the reactions were immediate. World leaders called for calm, while others condemned the strike as reckless and destabilizing. The United States reaffirmed its support for Israel's security. Iran, on the other hand, praised the action as resistance against Israeli aggression. Once again, we see the Middle East conflict not as an isolated event, but as a theater where global powers indirectly collide. It is important to remember that this missile did not come out of nowhere. The Houthis have been steadily improving their missile and drone capabilities with help from outside actors. Reports suggest that Iranian technology and training have been crucial in enabling them to project power far beyond Yemen's borders. This strike was the culmination of years of preparation. The symbolism of hitting Tel Aviv cannot be overstated. Jerusalem may be the political capital, but Tel Aviv is often considered the beating heart of Israeli society. Targeting it sends a signal not only to Israel, but to the entire world. No city is beyond the reach of this expanding conflict. What makes this even more alarming is the possibility of escalation. If Israel decides to retaliate directly against the Houthis in Yemen, it risks opening another front in an already stretched military campaign. Israel has long been cautious about overextending itself, but the pressure to respond to such a direct hit is enormous. Yemen itself is in no position to handle another layer of war. The people of Yemen have suffered famine, disease, and displacement for nearly a decade. Millions are already in dire need of humanitarian aid. A retaliatory strike could make things even worse, pushing the country further into chaos. At the same time, Israel's government is under pressure from its citizens to act. A strike on Tel Aviv is not something that can be ignored or brushed aside. Leaders will have to balance the need to protect national security with the risk of dragging Israel into yet another prolonged conflict. The regional context makes everything even more complicated. Iran has been increasing its influence across the Middle East through proxy groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and now the Houthis. The missile strike can be seen as part of Iran's strategy to encircle Israel with multiple threats, stretching its defenses thin. For Israel, this is a nightmare scenario. The United States, which has forces stationed in the region, also faces new challenges. American bases and ships could become targets if the Houthis or other groups decide to expand their strikes. Already, we've seen incidents in the Red Sea where Houthi missiles targeted commercial ships. Now that Tel Aviv has been hit, the risk of a larger regional war feels much more real. For ordinary people outside the region, this story might seem distant, but in a globalized world, the ripple effects are never far away. Oil prices, global shipping routes, international security, all are influenced by what happens in the Middle East. A missile strike in Tel Aviv is not just about Israel and Yemen. It's about the balance of power across continents. The psychological effect of this attack is also powerful. Israel has long prided itself on being secure, despite being surrounded by adversaries. The missile from Yemen shatters that perception. It shows that threats can come from even further away than many imagined, and it sends a chilling message to anyone who thought the conflict was limited to nearby borders. We also need to consider timing. This strike comes at a moment when Israel is already under global scrutiny for its actions in Gaza. Protests around the world have been calling for a ceasefire, and criticism has been mounting in international forums. For the Houthis, this was a moment to step into the spotlight and declare themselves part of the struggle. Media coverage of the strike has been intense. Images of smoke rising in Tel Aviv, emergency crews rushing to the scene, and frightened residents have been broadcast worldwide. In today's world, where every event is instantly shared online, the propaganda impact is almost as significant as the physical damage. Supporters of the Houthis celebrated the strike as a victory, framing it as proof that even a small, embattled group can stand up to Israel. For many in the Arab world, it was seen as a symbolic blow against what they view as Israeli aggression. For Israelis, however, it was a reminder of their vulnerability and the high stakes of living in such a volatile region. This event also raises questions about the future of diplomacy. Can negotiations and peace talks still play a role when new actors keep entering the conflict? Or is the Middle East sliding further into a permanent state of proxy wars, where groups like the Houthis act on behalf of larger powers? If history teaches us anything, it is that escalation rarely leads to resolution. Each strike, each retaliation, only adds fuel to the fire. Yet at the same time, political realities and national pride often demand a show of strength. Israel may feel it has no choice but to strike back, even if it knows the cost will be high. The people who suffer the most in these situations are always the civilians. Whether in Tel Aviv or Sana'a, ordinary families are the ones who wake up to the sound of explosions, who run for shelter, who lose their homes and loved ones. Their voices are often drowned out in the geopolitical noise, but their pain is real and lasting. Looking at the bigger picture, this missile strike is a reminder that the Middle East remains one of the most unpredictable regions in the world. Alliances shift, conflicts spread, and what happens in one place can quickly spill over into another. Yemen and Israel may be far apart geographically, but the lines of conflict are now crossing oceans and deserts. It is difficult to predict what will happen next. Israel might launch airstrikes against Houthi positions in Yemen. The Houthis might respond with more missiles not only against Israel but also against international shipping lanes. Other regional powers could be drawn in. The cycle of action and reaction could spiral quickly. For the international community, the challenge is enormous. How do you contain a conflict that is spreading across borders and pulling in so many different actors? Sanctions and condemnations may not be enough. At some point, diplomacy has to take center stage, but in a moment of anger and fear, diplomacy is often the hardest path to follow. The Houthis, meanwhile, may see this as their biggest moment on the global stage. For years, they have been seen as a local Yemeni insurgency. Now, by striking Tel Aviv, they have announced themselves as a player in the broader Middle Eastern conflict. Whether that is a sustainable position remains to be seen. As for Israel, the resilience of its people will once again be tested. The country has survived wars, intifadas, and countless threats. But the psychological scar of knowing that missiles from Yemen can hit Tel Aviv will not fade easily. It changes the sense of security in ways that are difficult to measure. At the heart of this story is a simple truth. Every missile launched, every strike carried out, pushes peace further out of reach. It creates new wounds, new hatreds, and new generations who grow up knowing only conflict. That is the real tragedy of the Middle East, and it is why moments like this should not be seen as just another headline. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we need to talk about a story that has sent shockwaves through the region and beyond. A Yemeni missile strike reportedly hit Tel Aviv, a moment that immediately captured international attention and sparked widespread concern. This is not just a headline. This is an event that carries enormous weight in terms of politics, security, and the future of the Middle East.